Hello everybody, how's it going, and welcome to a new video. So now that we've had some time to digest the Halo Infinite demo from the Xbox Game Showcase, I thought it would be a good time to talk about the opening cutscene from that demo. In my last video, I broke down the actual gameplay that we saw from the demo, and I said I was going to make another video talking about the beginning cutscene and the relationship between the pilot and Master Chief. And that is exactly what we're going to do today. So before we jump into it, let's take a look at the opening cutscene one more time.
Am I dead already? I must be, this is a punishment, right? Yep, this is death. No! No! No, 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 no! This isn't happening. I'm going to have to make an emergency landing. Hold on, Chief. No, you! I can't stand this! Who you are?
Breathe.
No! You don't get to tell me what to do. You don't get to tell me anything! We're... Are you even listening?
I count 3 anti-aircraft cannons.
3 what?
You'll be safe here.
Oh, I'll be safe. Safe? I haven't been safe since I found you. I found you, remember? You were out there on your own, and you'd still be out there if it wasn't for me. I thought I was going home.
There won't be a home if we don't stop the Banished.
You keep saying that. We're outgunned, outnumbered. I know I saw condors over there. I'm going to dig through them and find one with the working sleep space drive. And when you're done with this war, we'll get away from here. Far away.
Wait here.
Oh, please. Let me see what I can find.
Cannons first. When I get back, we can look. Together.
Okay, big guy.
So first things first, let's take a look at the date that pops up. We have the 28th of May, 2560, and 167 days after we lost. 167 days before May 28th would put us at December 13th, 2559. Which means that is the date that the UNSC lost their war with the Banished, or at the very least, lost the battle at the Ring to the Banished. Now the events of Halo Wars 2 take place sometime in 2559, but we are never given any exact dates. So with that in mind, that means we have a time frame of roughly 1 year or so before the UNSC loses this war. Now looking back at the Discover Hope trailer from last year, when Chief asks for a status report, the pilot is confused, and then tells Chief that there's something that he needs to see. We then get a look out at the cockpit, and we see that the ring is partially destroyed. And that is the first time that we hear the pilot say that they had lost. Now, considering that the Mjolnir armor has about 90 minutes of oxygen in them, we can assume that Chief wasn't floating around in space for too long before being picked up by the pilot. So I think it's safe to assume that when the pilot first meets Chief, that's the day that the UNSC lost. So it's been 167 days since then, just over 5 months that Chief and the pilot have been together. Now, I just want to make a point right here. Halo Follower made a video a couple months ago breaking down how long Master Chief and Cortana knew each other. If you haven't seen the video already, you should go check it out. But in the video, he breaks down exactly how long Chief and Cortana were together and able to build a relationship. And it's a grand total of 63 days. Between the time that Chief first gets Cortana and the end of Halo 5, they only know each other for a total of 63 days. That means that Chief and this pilot have already spent almost 3 times as much time together in less than 1 year. So I think that's something really important to keep in mind as we go through this scene of them together and try to break down their relationship. So moving forward, the first thing that we see in this scene is a couple Banished anti-air guns shooting down the Pelican that Chief and the pilot are in. There isn't a whole lot to talk about here other than the pilot just kind of talking to himself out loud. I do have to say though that after the second cannon hits the Pelican, the pilot says that he's going to try to make an emergency landing, and there is a very fine line between an emergency landing and just straight up crash landing, and I think that maybe the pilot is walking on the line right there. And then right before the screen goes dark, the pilot tells Master Chief to hold on, which to me is almost the equivalent of a parent putting their arm across their kid while they slam on the brakes in a car. Then we get into the meat of the dialogue here between Chief and the pilot. The pilot is clearly frustrated at Chief here, and the two seem to have different outlooks on the situation that they are in, with Chief being more focused on the mission at hand, and the pilot just wanting to get out of there and go home, kind of like he said in the Discover Hope trailer, and also he mentions it later on in the scene. Then when Chief goes to leave to take out the AA guns, we get this parent-like lecture from the pilot talking to Chief, telling him that he hasn't been safe since he found Chief, and that if it wasn't for him, he would still be floating around in space. And that's the type of relationship feeling that I'm getting between this two from what I've seen so far. And I have this feeling that we're going to see a whole new, more human side to Master Chief that we haven't seen a whole lot of in past games. Next we hear Chief pretty much confirm that the Banished is going to be our main enemy in Halo Infinite, or at least one of the main enemies, by saying that there isn't going to be a home to go to if they cannot stop the Banished. The pilot then responds to Chief and tells him that they are outgunned and outmanned, which really isn't that good of an argument to use against Master Chief because he has been outgunned and outmanned since the very beginning. The pilot then mentions how he saw a couple crashed Condors and wants to go scavenge them to try to find a working slipspace drive, and then tells Chief that once he is done with this war, that they are leaving. The way the pilot phrases that kind of gives this idea that maybe Chief is the only person who's actually still in this fight. He says specifically when you are done with this war, and to me that kind of sounds like the pilot has already accepted that they've lost, and now just kind of wants to get off the ring, get far away, and maybe try to get back to the UNSC somehow, and maybe even get to the Infinity if it's not already lost to the war. And then at the end here, we get one last exchange between the two, where Chief tells the pilot that once he gets the guns offline, then they can go look for the parts together. The pilot reluctantly agrees, and then the last line we get is the pilot telling Chief,
Okay, big guy.
So it seems like there's a pretty solid relationship that's been formed between Master Chief and the pilot over the course of those 167 days since the UNSC lost the war. The way that the pilot talks to the Chief is a way that we really haven't seen anyone talk to him before, and at one point in the scene, he even kind of lays down the law on him, saying that the Chief can't tell him what to do. And I know personally that I'm already a bigger fan of this new nameless pilot than I am of any of the other characters that 343 has given us over the course of 2 whole games. And I think that's a good thing. It really shows that 343 is putting in some time and effort into the writing and really trying to build this relationship between the Chief and the pilot. And that brings us to the end of today's video. I want to thank you all so much for watching. Let me know what you think about the relationship between Chief and the pilot and any other thoughts that you might have on Halo Infinite so far. If you enjoyed watching the video today, feel free to click that like button and consider subscribing. I'm still really new at this, so your support would really mean a lot to me. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll see you all next time.